Okay. Good afternoon to you all. I'm Susana Seabra from SPI. To you all here in this room and also online. This is a hybrid event. I just would like first to say to you that this is the first event we are organizing in this new building where SPI is located. We used to be in IPN. There are companies here from IPN. And during the pandemic, we changed our location to here. And for us, it's a pleasure to organize this first event here in Leonardo da Vinci building and to have here with us some companies from this, here in presence from this ecosystem we have in Coimbra, from IPN, from this ePark park that is here also in Coimbra for bigger companies. SPI is the consultant company that celebrated already last year 25 years of age, and it's focused on research, innovation, and internationalization. So we work with companies, private companies, with public entities, and also with R&D institutions at national and international level. We have several offices here in Portugal. The headquarters is in Porto. And then we have also in Spain, in Brussels, and then United States and China. We work at international level. We work a lot with China, with the Asian Southeast of Asia, and also in Latin America, United States, where we have the offices, and in Africa. And more with Africa, we have been having these projects with public authorities, but also with incubators, with startups, which is something that we think is getting more and more intense, this collaboration between Europe and Africa, and has been grateful for us also to work with this continent. Once again, welcome you all. And I hope you would like to know better about SPI. But what brings us here today is this project, ENRICH, in USA. This is not moving. Let's see here. Thank you. Okay. This is our agenda for today. I will do this brief introduction and brief overview of this project. And then we have Francisco, Inês, first Inês, Francisco, and then Francisco. And then we have here some sharing of experience from this company that is here with us, Systemic. So ENRICH stands for European Network of Research and Innovation Centers and Hubs. This is a new initiative from the European Commission that, well, it's like a new paradigm in this approach to R&D that usually you have in several continents, each government and companies investing in R&D, and then they want to exploit that R&D in the same continent. And there's some kind of competition between European Union and the United States and China. And here the perspective is to valorize the new knowledge, to valorize research and innovation wherever it is. And if you have good research and innovation being done in Europe, you can make partnership with China, with Africa, with South America, and then wherever the best market and the best conditions can be for that precise technology to be developed. So that's the spirit here. And this is an initiative that was supported previously by Horizon 2020 since 2017. And now we have a new cycle from 2021 to 2023. And the idea, as you can see here, it's support innovation entering in North America, this precise project, developing joint activities with soft landing. This is the key words here, the soft landing to try to reduce the risk of these new ideas that are going to be tested and developed in other continents. The idea is to, well, make this landing or this new approach with less risks. So I think I already explained who we are. This is a funding initiative of the European Union, and it's focused on the creation of direct corridors of innovation, incubation, acceleration, and attractiveness of tech champions in North America. Okay, the expertise is to organizing physical and digital points of convergence between European Union ecosystems and North American ecosystems. And this is the next topic we have here is what I already told you about, why we exist, because these are a new approach that is not focused on competition but on collaboration to bring new technologies and ideas to market. And the values are to develop deep tech projects and ventures from Europe through collective intelligence of well-established, nurturing, and agile English-speaking local and global networks. This is the view, the vision of this project. And we have a network of more than 50 European Union and US ambassadors. You can here see some examples of these entities that are collaborating to develop these soft landing facilities that you can use. And as I told you, this is not the only ENRICH project that is going on. We have already ENRICH in China, ENRICH in Africa, India, South America, Caribbean, etc. And now we have a new umbrella for all these projects, which is ENRICH Global. Okay. And that's it from my side. Thank you once again for being here. Okay. I will pass the word to Ines.
Hello, my name is Ines. I'm going to present a short overview of the US market at a glance. So here we have some general points. The United States is 2.5 times the size of Western Europe. It is the most technologically powerful country in the world, has a population of 329 million, a GDP of $20.94 trillion, and has a very high GDP per capita, also has 11.4% of population below poverty, and the official unemployment rate is at 3.6%. And this figure here shows the GDP trend in the United States. The US counties with the lowest density are primarily located in Alaska, Montana, Texas, and Nevada. And the high density counties include the large cities. And it is important from a consumer product point of view to approach the US from a regional market perspective. And so all of our market entry support for SMEs focuses on identifying the proper regional markets in order to concentrate our efforts. As for foreign direct investment, we can see here that FDI in manufacturing continues to increase, while other sectors remain flat. So at least some manufacturing segments are seen as opportunities by foreign investors, here with Japan leading. As for challenges and opportunities, we would like to highlight the relevance of SMEs, since SMEs are essential drivers of innovation and growth, and they represent a significant share of the US imports. SMEs represent a significant segment of the exporting community and value of the US imports, and SMEs in many sectors can supply small regions of the US market. And the level of exporting activity increases with firm size, and online sales channels are emerging as the key enabler for SMEs to export to the US. And that is why it is important to have a regional market perspective. Here we would like to introduce some easily identifiable main challenges. The first being the size of the market. That is why it is important to identify target regional markets. The geographical distance from the market also adds supply chain costs. There are also significant time zone differences depending on the regions involved. There are exchange rate fluctuations between the euro and the dollar. There are also challenges related with local laws and regulations, with testing and with standards. And there is very strong competition in the market for products and services. And litigation is very common, and the US has the highest number of lawyers per capita. There are also other challenges that we have identified, such as achieving a competitive price point, also achieving an effective market presence, state requirements, which will vary state by state. There are also challenges that can be identified related to product liability law, which will need to implement highly precautionary measures to reduce risk. And the US also has a complex tax system, and the taxes on services and products can be imposed by the US federal government and also by the individual states, counties, and cities. But there are also many opportunities in this market. It is a large single market, so it is the largest consumer market. There is one common language, although of course Spanish can also be an advantage. There is a common general culture, and it is an economically and politically stable country, with great access to the global supply chain and with low average tariffs between the EU and the US. It is also a very technologically advanced economy, as was already mentioned before, with a lot of business opportunities in new areas. There are also niche markets opportunities, and there are really comprehensive intellectual property laws, which offer a high standard of protection for IPR. And also there are opportunities related to product certification, since products can be tested and certified for the US market by private industry organizations. So this is the end of my section, and then now my colleague Francisco will introduce the services available from ENRICH in Europe.
Thank you, Ines. I will say seated because I think it's easier for the ones that are listening online. But now the idea of this slot, and maybe one of the main parts of this session, is that we came from the presentation of ENRICH, which told us about some of the opportunities and challenges in the US, which of course many of us are already aware. We know the market, we know how it is, but there are specific aspects that need to be taken into account. The US market is very specific, as Ines just mentioned. And following what Susanna mentioned on ENRICH in USA, this initiative that we are doing, we want now to present what can we do for you. So we understand that you have an interest in the US market, you want to internationalize, you want to develop your activities there, either for research, either for innovation. And ENRICH aims to be this tool, this sort of platform that can help you in taking the first step and actually further first steps in your interaction with the US market. So as Susanna mentioned, and very correctly, ENRICH in the USA aims to support collaboration between what is being done in research and innovation in Europe and what is being done in the US. Of course, what we do in practice is that we help companies, either they are startups or entrepreneurs or even SMEs, to try to find the right tools to approach the market. I will go in detail on the services that we provide and what we have available under ENRICH in the USA at this moment, and how and where we are in the US and how we can do to help you in this stage of getting there. Of course, we also have different support activities that give you the access to information about the market. So if you want to know more about what's happening in the US, you're not completely sure if you want to take this step of internationalization, you can of course come to us, and we also have several tools that we believe are very interesting to getting to know the market better. So as mentioned on the slide, we provide collaboration and commercialization of support services for European researchers and innovators as well to access the US. So we facilitate this access to the ecosystem at different levels, and as you will see in the next slide, in different locations. So this is important to understand how ENRICH is currently set up. Although the slide is not very readable, I can see, but we will share the slides as well after this presentation. We have the partnership of ENRICH in the USA, which I haven't talked about because it's not core to what we are doing, but you can see it here at the end of the slide, the 6 partners that are implementing this center, and SPI is one of them. And we have in the US our headquarters of ENRICH that are established in Philadelphia at Temple University. So Temple University is also one of the institutions that is developing ENRICH in the USA, and they are represented as the headquarters of ENRICH in the USA. Besides Philadelphia, we have also 3 centers, 2 of them located in the East Coast, in Boston and in Washington, DC. In Washington, DC, we have a center that is located through our partner NCURA. This stands for National Council of University Research Administrators. And then on the West Coast, in San Francisco, we have also our 3rd center. So this gives us, of course, the opportunity for European researchers and innovators that are interested in the market to have access to both the East side and the West side. And as you know, these are the most developed and economic strong areas and regions of the United States. Besides these centers, we have what we call the soft landing hubs. Okay, so these are the logos that you are seeing here. For example, Purdue University or C3s in Berkeley, Texas, Austin University. So these are university and other types of institutions such as Runway and Cal Poly, universities and incubators that are located throughout the US and that are associated with ENRICH. So let's imagine that you have a specific interest on a thematic area, and one of those thematic areas is included in one of our soft landing hubs. You can access directly our soft landing hubs in the US. Let's imagine that you have interest for a specific region in the US for some reason, because the product that you are developing is stronger or has more economic impact in a specific region, let's say Texas. We will then forward you and give you the access to our soft landing hub, which is located in Texas. So the idea is that we have this network in the US, in different regions, in different thematic areas, and each one can help you and accommodate your needs very specifically, depending on what you want to do in the country. So it is important as well for us to see the 3 groups that we have in our what we call ENRICH community. So we have the first group on the left which are basically universities and research centers, we have been able to work with a large number of these institutions in the US and highly renowned institutions as well. We have the second group, which includes not only US institutions, but also Europeans, associations, and other organizations that support the development of activities in the US, for example, the European Commission, or InvestEU, or SBDC, which is a program in the US, which I will talk further on. And the third part of our community, which is also very important, concerns the banks, the funding, the incubators, the accelerators, and the venture capital institutions that we try to bring to our entrepreneurs. And we try to give the opportunity to our entrepreneurs to access these investors and these venture capital institutions. Another important point, and this is the last slide on our community, but just for you to be aware of the high number of experts, ambassadors, mentors that we have been able to involve throughout these years. You will see that we have, as I mentioned, leveraged several investors, several startups, incubators, top executives from highly renowned institutions, regional leaders in the US, and so we have been able to create a very strong community. Currently, we have a platform, which is called the ENRICH Community Platform, that is open to everyone. You are, of course, free to visit at this website, and through this, you can access these contacts, you can share your experiences, and also see what ENRICH in the USA is doing that involves, of course, this community. So we believe this is a very relevant aspect to take into account. Now I will present the ENRICH in the USA services. So this is what I talked at the beginning about our community, about how we have been evolving throughout the years, what we have been able to reach throughout these years. And now I'm going to talk about what we are currently offering to entrepreneurs, startups, researchers, innovators, and so on. Our services are divided into what we call three main pillars. The first concerns the step of immersion. So the first step when you are trying to understand the market. So that's why we have their education and connection, to connect to the main stakeholders, to understand the market, to get information on different regions of the market or in different sectors. And we have several services that we have that are inserted in this first option, in this first pillar. The second concerns the market validation. So after you learn about the market, you want to start developing your activities in the US. So to have a virtual landing, you are not physically located in the US, but you are already interacting with US actors, US stakeholders. And this is then the second step that we can help through the virtual landing. And then finally, the third, which is related as well with our incubation system and the university network that we have been able to build, where it is a third step, so a soft landing, as Susanna mentioned. A first entering the US market, being there physically located, but with all the support of ENRICH, not only our infrastructures, but also our network of stakeholders and ambassadors. The next slide presents some examples of what we do in each one of these pillars. So if we start by the first one, concerning the education and connection, and thus the immersion programs, we include here things like participation in relevant events and trade shows, training on the US market and workshops and events such as this one, building your network to access funding institutions. And when we talk about funding institutions, we mean investors, venture capital organizations, and so on. We have also, and I will show in the next slide, a set of handbooks and guides, which are our studies that we develop on several thematic areas, and that provide a good overview of the US market in those thematic areas. And these are downloadable by our website. And so all of this information is included in this first pillar of service. The second one concerns the virtual landing. Here, we want to try to explore the network that we have on a virtual basis, not physically located in the US, to try to find the experts, the mentors, to start developing your activity on a virtual basis to the US. And then the third one, the university incubation, the soft landing. So here, all the support to be located in the US through a desk that is offered through our centers, and the possibility to access support either by mentors or consultants, or even to getting your visa to the US, or to getting to specific programs that are developed under the US government, such as the SBDC, which supports a network of small and medium enterprises. So all of these three pillars are part of the ENRICH in the USA offer. I will now go into each one and show some examples of the services that we offer and that are available to you. The first concerns what I was just mentioning on our handbooks and innovation market guides. So these are documents that we have been developing since 2017 on several thematic areas. You have there those that are already produced. We talk about different areas of interest that we found either from the events we attended or from the needs of our clients. And these market guides provide a good scan and first overview of what is the market. So if you access these guides, you will be able to, for example, understand where are the main hubs of innovation in a specific thematic area in the US. Where are they located? Who are the main players? What are the main events that are associated with this topic? What are the main funding opportunities at the state and federal levels that you can access to work under this topic? And so it provides a good overview. It has each study around 100 pages, and it's available through our website. These studies are currently paid, but to people that attend our events, such as you have the possibility to download them for free. In case you want that, please let me know after the event or email me, and I will share, our team will share with you the needed studies that you might require. Another very interesting service that we have still on this first pillar of education concerns the funding summits. Until COVID, until the pandemic, we used to do funding summits that were associated with our missions to the US. We are currently developing ENRICH in the USA events in several big trade shows in the US. And we used to do funding summits there with entrepreneurs, startups, and SMEs from Europe that will travel with us to the US and attend these events, these trade shows, and pitch their ideas to potential investors. We here provide this opportunity for you to access these investors, these venture capital institutions, and to attend these funding summits. During the pandemic, we used to do it online. So currently we have an hybrid, I would say, model where the funding summits are either done online or in the cases where we have the trade shows ongoing directly at the trade shows. And talking about the trade shows, we have in this slide the next ones that we will attend. Some of them, if not all of them, very well known. So the next one will actually be in Las Vegas in January, the CES fair, the biggest consumer electronics fairs in the world. And ENRICH in USA will be represented, and we'll have activities concerning this fair. We have, of course, presence in several trade shows, not only in a specific topic. I talked about consumer electronics. We are also at the RSA for cybersecurity, Select USA, South by Southwest, one of the biggest events in Texas, the Bio Convention in San Diego, for example. So in all of those, we are presented, we are well represented, and we bring a team of European startups and entrepreneurs that are interested in going there. So this is currently open, and calls for this opportunity are currently open. Moving to the virtual landing. So this service is somewhat a further step into the internationalization and into being present in the market. As mentioned on the slide, the virtual lending program that we have in ENRICH is a platform for entrepreneurs to start their activities in the next 2 years. So if you plan to, and you want to know more, you want to be involved in the market and being there, not physically, but starting developing your activities, you can access this virtual lending. We have, as mentioned on the slide, 6 months of mentoring, consulting, training activities, virtual access to a space, to an hot-desk space when you are traveling to the US. Let's imagine you go to the US on a specific fair. You have some hours that you can use and use our hot-desk services at our offices, depending on the location that you specifically want. And as I mentioned, to have access to our ENRICH in USA staff, mentors, and also SBDC support when located in the US. This is a specific program that I will explain in a further slide. Besides the virtual landing, we have then, I would say, the last step of the journey of ENRICH, which concerns the soft landing. So here it's on average for 2 years, but this is of course depending on the specific service that you want to access, to be located on a dedicated desk in the US and access our ENRICH in the USA staff. All of these soft landing, virtual landing programs and funding summits as well, they are all very well detailed in our website. They are, of course, provided by our US partners, Temple University and Incura, as I mentioned, with the support of all the European partners and the ENRICH in the USA network that we have, and calls are open for these opportunities. The soft landing, as it concerns having a location and having a visa to the US that you can access there, we also, I mean, ENRICH is currently partnering with the SBDC program of the SBA program of the US government. So SBA stands for Small Business Administration. It's a program under the US government, and it supports the development of SMEs. So SMEs and entrepreneurs can access a pool of relevant experts and counselors that can help them in their activities. And ENRICH in the USA is currently supporting access from entrepreneurs and their enterprises to this program, which can be very interesting in case you are already located in the US or you plan to be located, and then you want to access this network of experts and leading institutions. So this slide, talking about the soft landing programs, basically summarizes what you can access through our soft landing programs. The first part on education and training, so to have access to our community, network, pitching activities, pitching trainings, legal aspects, e-commerce, etc. So all of this can be provided through ENRICH. Having the second part that I talked a lot during this presentation, which is very important, is the access to capital, to funding, to venture capital, local agents, etc. The incubation part, co-working, so we support this aspect to be located at the university. So we have connections with the universities to support hot-desk services in the US. And of course, the last part of technical assistance, one-on-one consulting, business development, etc. All of that is provided through ENRICH, and all of that is also leveraged through the SBDC program, in case you are, as I mentioned, located in the US. And before going to this slide, we have, in terms of our agenda, a session on questions and answers after the presentation of ENRICH. We'll present some funding opportunities that exist in the US, connected, of course, with the work that we have been doing in ENRICH in the USA. And the idea is that during that questions and answer session, we have some time to discuss and also to hear from you. I think it would be important to hear from you what exactly you would be looking for, also what questions or doubts you might have on ENRICH in the USA and the services that we are providing. And we'll have, of course, time for discussions, not only present here in the room, but also people that are online. Please feel free to provide your questions and comments in the chat box or in the question and answers option. We have, and I wanted just to show you two additional slides. The first concerns another initiative where SPI is involved that is connected with the US, and the main core partners of ENRICH in the USA are also involved on this. So there are obviously synergies between those. That concerns next generation internet programs. So currently, and this is called NGI ENRICHers, is a new project and program that the European Commission is launching to support the development of research between what we call fellows from Europe that will be located from 3 to 6 months in the US in specific host institutions. Either we are talking about universities, SMEs, or other companies. The objective is to develop research and innovation activities in the topics of next generation internet. So we have also a call open for this. There is funding available for fellows that want to participate. So please feel free to access the website on NGI ENRICHer or ask, of course, the SPI team more information on this in case this is a topic, the next generation internet topics is of interest to your organization. And finally, yes, we have also here a guide that we think it's very interesting, related with Select USA Investor Guide. This provides very good information on how to partner with research institutions in the US. We think it can be very interesting for SMEs, entrepreneurs, and companies that want to know more. And so we will share this presentation with you, and you will have access to this link, of course. This is the last slide of my presentation. I will pass the floor to Inês, but I will stay here, I would say, for yes, it can be, for further questions or comments that you want to provide in the next session. So Inês,
okay, I'll present an overview of some funding trends and opportunities in the US. So as we can see from this figure, the growth of total US R&D expenditures has been increasing in general terms, and business-funded R&D grew the most during this period. And as per budget function, we can see that most of the R&D funding comes from national defense. We can also see that here in this graph, the Department of Defense represents the biggest parts of R&D funding, and we can see that overall the budget is increasing. Here we have an overview of the most important departments and agencies in terms of federal STI spending: the Department of Defense, the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, NASA, and the Department of Energy. And these agencies provide funding for business and academia. And the total R&D spending of these agencies represents over 90% of the total R&D funding available. The National Science Foundation has a broad mandate, which is largely focused on basic science, while the other agencies here are mission-driven agencies focused on specific research areas. And in addition to providing STI funding to universities and businesses, these agencies can also have internal laboratories, which can be an opportunity for collaboration with European researchers. And we would also like to highlight that the National Institutes of Health has an agreement with the European Commission, meaning that under the funding program Horizon Europe, US organizations in the area of health can also receive funding. So for both EU and US funding opportunities for R&D are mainly provided through grant schemes. And US federal applications can take some time and they require experience with the system, which can sometimes be an obstacle for international partners, but still complete applications can be done in less than 3 months. And grants are often awarded within 3 months of submission. Success rates of proposals at federal level vary widely, and the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy tend to have the highest success rates. And although US funding grants are open to international participation, it can be rather difficult for citizens to obtain information on the application process. Here we would like to provide an example of how to apply to US funding grants that can mainly be done through the grants.gov website, and each funding agency has different needs and requirements. And so applications can be submitted online, mainly through this website, or through the agency-specific submitting systems. Foreign applicants usually need to complete the same registration process as domestic applicants, but with some additional registration processes. For example, you might need to file a US tax return or taxpayer identification number. Next slide. And also in most cases, the main applicant organization needs to be 51% owned by Americans or green card holders. So this makes federal grants a little complicated to get. So state grants are a better option or easier to get. Here we just wanted to show you a little bit what the grants.gov website looks like. Shows the calls that are open, the eligibility criteria, and how programs are organized. And on the next slide here, we just wanted to show a little bit the eligibility, the basic search criteria that you will find. You'll find the opportunities, the funding, instrument type, eligibility, category, and all the agencies that are providing funding. And we will also, as Francisco mentioned before, we have worked on several guides and handbooks, which will also include some funding opportunities and how to get started and how to build a network, how to find contact points. And we will provide an example from the production technologies study. So here you can see the map of the leading innovation hubs focused on AI, big data, CPS, Internet of Things, and robotics. And we will would like to highlight some federal initiatives and programs. And in our guide, which you can get after the event, there are more examples, and they include a description, the first approach, and the contacts to get started. So a very broad example of a federal initiative we have here is the Manufacturing USA initiative, which was created in 2014 and aims to secure US global leadership in advanced manufacturing and connects people and technology. And the Manufacturing USA network is made up of business, academic institutions, and other stakeholders that get together to test applications of new technology, create new products, reduce costs and risk. And the institutes are public-private partnerships that each focus on a distinctive technology. And manufacturing in the USA enables industry-led private-public partnerships to engage with US universities in order to design and implement integrated advanced manufacturing. I would like to also add here that European researchers that are interested in opportunities under Manufacturing USA, they need to become a member of the network, and each project call will have all the eligibility requirements and definitions. And here are some of the Manufacturing USA's key initiatives related to future manufacturing supply chains, manufacturing workforce development, and also clean energy development. And we would also like to show you just one other example, this time based on clean tech, some federal initiatives and programs. Here we have just two. The first one, which we think is very relevant, a Small Business Innovation Research Program, which awards competitive funds to businesses in order to stimulate technological innovation and to foster innovation in entrepreneurship. So each agency, which they are listed here on the slide, they post funding solicitations to which applicants can respond. And the last one, which is an agency that is a bit more open to international cooperation, the US Trade and Development Agency, which helps companies to create jobs through the exports of US goods. The USDA links US businesses to export opportunities by funding project preparation and partnership building activities. And there are opportunities for companies to apply for contracts with the USDA as partners or subcontracted entities. So these are the conclusions from this section. Overall, the US funding system is highly complex with a lot of different actors. Federal R&D funding is provided through different federal agencies. There are significant federal and state R&D investments, and information on funding programs is not always easy to access, especially for foreigners. And there is a need to select a reliable contact points before entering the US.
Okay. Thank you, Ines. We have now, and for those that are connected through Zoom, we have now some minutes to open the discussion to the participants. So please feel free to pose your questions, your comments, or maybe if you want just to share your objectives in the US, if you have some or not. We would try to provide you as many information as possible and to try to help you in accessing, enriching, if that's the case. The presentation, just one note on the presentation that Ines did is very comprehensive to understand what exists. As Ines just mentioned, some of the opportunities are more targeting the US market itself and US players rather than international actors or European researchers and innovators, but there are some possibilities. This information is also all summarized in the studies that we are offering under ENRICH. So in case you want to know more as well, you can have access to those studies, which provide more details and more information on what Ines was mentioned. But please let me know if you want to discuss. We also like to hear from you, your perspectives on going to the US market as much as possible. And also for those that are online. We will have, well, you think or not, we will have after this a session of an organization that is our partner in ENRICH, Systemic. They will also provide you a different perspective on sustainability finance and on aspects that you should take into account giving this thematic, and that is very much applicable in the US market. So if there are any questions, please pose them now. If not, we also have, after the presentation of Systemic, a short coffee break or cocktail as we are calling it, and we can discuss informally during the networking session, which is sometimes more pleasant even than asking questions here. Of course, please.
So there's a big list of sources that you provide for us, everything from the stage of going to US markets. Is it on demand? So we, as a project, we create funds on something, so that's something, or it's package solution.
Exactly. So the service structure is already defined, so what each service provides, but you can choose which specific aspect of the service you want. For example, we offer the possibility of attending the trade shows, which is just one part. It doesn't mean that you have to access the whole package of virtual lending and soft lending. So in that sense, it is dependent on whoever the client, on whoever wants the service. We have, of course, the possibility of trying to understand what are your needs and try to adapt the offer to your needs in case we have such capabilities. So we have our, I would say, offer of different services, of different steps of going into the US. You can choose to be in some or to access some, but we are also open to see how we can adapt our offer to your needs.
And prices,
Yes, the prices are different. They, of course, the prices on the soft lending are higher than in the other services. They are in the website. They range about of around $2,000 but they range from depending what exactly you want. So this is also on demand, I would say. And there are other services that are provided for free. Of course, when we talk about providing these studies that we develop that are sold online, but for people that attend our events are for free, or training workshops that we might develop concerning the US, these are for free. But the services that are more, I would say, specific in terms of the support, those are paid and they depend on the specific service that you are requiring.
is it more about saving our time? Fast. I mean, that's not to understand if the market is suitable, or it's really expertise that we cannot get by ourselves.
I wouldn't dare to answer that in that sense. I mean, I believe that any company, entrepreneur, researcher is more than capable of alone going to a foreign market and being successful. I think that ENRICH facilitates the process. I would say facilitates specifically because of the large network that is available in the US. So to access the right partners, have, as I mentioned, a not desk service of a place, physical place that you can be at the US, to contact with the right people. I think that ENRICH facilitates that. It doesn't mean that by yourself or by the company just without any additional support wouldn't be able to succeed in the market. That's not what we are saying. I think it's a tool that facilitates some aspects, but of course there's always risks even in these programs, and even with all the support of our network, it doesn't mean that things will go perfectly okay. There are always risks, and this needs to be taken into account as well. I would say it's a platform that in some cases facilitates some of the steps that you would need to take by yourself.
just
No.
that, but definitely it can make a difference for you to go faster and
Yeah.
and expend less resources because everything's more concentrated.
Hmm. Yes, I think so.
Spend more if you to do that alone or to contract those services to private
Mhm.
companies. As well, each one separately would be for sure very different access to this
Yeah.
package of services that we define or develop public package.
One thing that is important now that Susanna talked about public finance is that, of course, ENRICH it started as a project, as Susanna mentioned, but now it's an independent center, and the idea is that this center is sustainable. So we are receiving funding from the European Commission until the end of 2023, so one more year, but the idea is that ENRICH continues to operate on a sustainability basis through its services, to its sponsorships, and further funding that it receives from other institutions. But the idea is that it is sustainable and continuous throughout time, which is a little bit different than the normal structure of European Union projects, I would say. Okay. We do have more, not so many from Portugal, I would say. We did have some interactions and some services, but more on a immersion basis to education and to understand the market rather than the further steps. So currently, yes, we do have some services, but not specifically from Portugal when we talk about virtual lending and soft lending, for example. Yes. If there are no more questions, maybe I give the floor to Systemic, to Gonçalo and Pedro, and we can talk more after the break. Okay. During the coffee, yes. Thank you. Deixa-me pôr assim, não é? Se eu fizer assim, and slideshow, se eu conseguir. Assim, 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 assim. Tá, deixa-me só ver. Já está? Acho que sim. O problema é que não. Tem que ser aqui. Ou aqui, ou clicas, mas acho que eu passo não aqui deste lado. Sim, se estiver mais perto possível, melhor. Mas ouve-se bem. So, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to, first of all, thank SPI and ENRICH for the invitation to be here in Coimbra. It's our first partnership with ENRICH, and we are very proud and looking forward to promote this partnership and to help startups, small and medium companies, and entrepreneurs regarding this thematic of sustainable finance and how sustainable finance can be a competitive advantage for startups, for entrepreneurs, and for small and medium companies. We are from Systemic, a small company of 10 persons, but with more than 20 years of experience in sustainable finance. Some of our major clients are the big banks in Portugal, some financial institutions, but also some companies that act in the retailer sector, also in agriculture. So we have a lot of experience in different sectors of the economy.
So today, and as Francisco and Ines mentioned a lot in this first part of the session, it is very important to companies to access capital and to have access to venture capital funding. Our presentation will be how sustainable finance can be a competitive advantage for companies to promote ourselves as a different company in the market. So today, for our agenda, we will start with a small climate context regarding the Paris Agreement, the increasing temperatures, some small events. Then we will look for some European Union regulation. European Union is on the forefront of sustainable finance regulation. Small steps ahead of the United States, so it is predictable that in the near future, some of this regulation will also be implemented in the US. So we will give some highlights of the EU regulation, and then we will go talk about some sustainable finance products that enterprises could access in the market. And then I will give the word to Gonçalo, that will talk about probably the main message that we would like to take here, that is the sustainable development goals and how the sustainable development goals could be a competitive advantage for companies. So in the next slide, I will show you a small video from Guardian that show us some disasters that happened in the last couple of months and years. Just 2 minutes.
Really, what science told us what was happening is happening. We always have to say, yeah, you have to be careful about attributing individual events to global heating, but climate scientists are saying that this pattern is exactly as they forecast, and that events that are happening much faster and are much more severe than they anticipated. That may be the only positive that comes from all of this destruction, is that it really focuses the minds of governments in the lead up to the really important climate meeting that's happening in Glasgow in early November. I mean, most governments have now signed up to the Paris Agreement, where they promised to reach net zero greenhouse emissions by 2050, but they're under increasing pressure to show exactly how they'll do that. Change has been happening around national governments, and now it's catching up with national governments, and some national governments and supranational governments like the EU are really moving, and that's putting pressure on the laggard national governments like Australia. And so it's that sense of looking at the broader picture and the broader momentum for change that gives me as much hope as I managed to have.
So there are a lot of videos like this one in internet. You just to Google it and have some ideas of what is going on around the world. And in fact, every minute the clock is tick-tock and the temperature is increasing. As you may know, some of you may know, the Paris Agreement signed in 2015 goal of keeping the global warming below 2 degrees, and try ideally to not go up than 1.5 degrees. So it's not just science saying that the climate crisis is one of the biggest topics nowadays. One of the most important reports regarding economic issues and social issues published by the World Economic Forum in this year, some months ago, identified that in the next 10 years, 5 of the most global risks are regarding the environment. And we could say the climate action failure, extreme weather, biodiversity loss, human environment damage, and natural resource crisis are identified in the 10 global risks by severity. Because of that, European Union is on the forefront of this action and is one of the key players regarding regulation for sustainable finance. Since the Paris Agreement until the Sustainable Development Goals, European Union have a sustainable finance platform and regulation in place. I would highlight 3 main regulations that in the medium term, every company in Portugal or in any country have to comply. The Corporate Sustainability Report Directive, the European Taxonomy, and the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, like telling you, highlight in the next slides in more detail. Starting with the first one, Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive as a regulation that brings together financial data, ESG information, and assurance for the first time. It will combine in the only report information regarding financial data, balance sheet, results, and also non-financial information, namely sustainable data. The main goals are to promote transparency and to take in consideration these risks, and additionally to identify some opportunities in this sustainability ecosystem. Regarding the companies that have to report, as I mentioned before, most of the companies have to comply with this regulation in the near future. From January to 2026, listed small and medium companies and not listed companies have to comply with that until 2028. Another important regulation is the European Union taxonomy that defines 6 major environment objectives. This regulation classifies economic activities, as you know, the NACE activities by different technical criteria. The 6 main environmental objectives are climate change mitigation, adaptation to climate change, use and protection of water and marine resources, also the transition to the circular economy, waste prevention and recycling. In 5th place, the pollution prevention and control, and also sustainable protection and healthy ecosystems. These are the 6 main objectives of these regulations, and every company will be classified according to their NACE code against these objectives. The last regulation that we would like to highlight is the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation that mostly is applied to asset managers like investment funds, insurance company, pension funds that invest in companies or in bonds and capital of companies. This kind of financial institutions have to comply with different criteria, and they have to provide information about their investments. And we would like to publish and to publish to public that their investments are taking into consideration the climate risks, the sustainable finance ecosystem. So it's probably that in a near future, like 1 year, 2 years, these big players in the financial market will ask the companies, what are your greenhouse gas emissions? What is your scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 of greenhouse gas emissions? What is the representative of women in your boards? So a lot of information that will be asked to small and medium companies, and the companies have to be prepared for this kind of questions. So regarding the most important sustainable finance products, the most important and the most common in the market nowadays are bonds that are divided in green, social, and sustainability linked bonds. Also funds related with the SFDR regulation. Article 8 funds promote characteristics of social and environment aspects, and also Article 9 that Article 9 funds that has goals regarding environmental objectives. Also loans, some of banks in Portugal also has giving loans taking in consideration, for instance, the energetic certificate of houses or infrastructures of companies, and that's giving some bonus regarding this aspect. And we will give some detail about each one of them. So green bonds are enable capital raising and investment for new and existing projects with environmental benefits. Social bonds are using the investments that they raise for investing in projects with a positive social outcome, and also sustainability bonds that are mixed between green and social policies. For example, two of the last emissions in Portugal for well-established companies from Greenvolt and Motengil are linked with this kind of objectives. For instance, Motengil, this last emission is regarding the accidents of the workers in their daily basis. Regarding the funds, the biggest asset managers in the world, since BlackRock, Fidelity, Robeco, are implementing this approach of looking for the sustainability ideas of companies. And not only this most common, but also venture capital funds are looking for this kind of companies to invest. Regarding loans, it is also most common in a daily basis to see a lot of companies linking their loans to sustainability objectives. For instance, Dana, Nokia, and Ineco already ask loans and define and set some objectives, and the pricing, the yield that they will pay will be linked with these objectives that they propose to accomplish. Finally, before I give the word to Gonçalo, I would say that also the European Union is have a significant amount of money to achieve this climate transition. More than 8 billion euros are in place regarding the climate transition and the green economy, and this is a big challenge for small and medium enterprise to have access to this money and to implement more sustainable practice and to define a sustainable strategy on a daily basis.
So now we're going to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. Most of you probably have heard about it, and they are succeeding the Millennium Goals by the United Nations, and this is the 2030 agenda. So they set the goals for 2030, and this provides a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, and now and into the future. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. At this urgent call for every country to together and tackle these problems. They recognize that the ending of poverty and other privations may go end to end with a strategy to develop the health systems, the education systems, but also to reduce inequalities and spur economic growth. While we are tackling the climate change and protecting forests and oceans. These 17 goals also have 169 targets and 230 indicators. this is how the goals are divided. So we have 6 goals for people, 4 for prosperity, 5 for planet, 1 for peace, and another one for partnerships. And what does it have to do with companies if the countries decided this? Is because without companies, we can't reach the goals. So the former secretary of the UN said that corporations are vital partners in achieving the SDGs. And if the companies are vital, is because they have the innovation in products, in projects, in business models, and they are more agile. They create jobs and all dynamic and empowered to society that the governments alone they can't do. So this is why the SDGs are so important to bring the companies in. And how can the companies integrate the SDGs? So the UN, along with big companies, provided a tool that's called the SDG Compass that created a guidance that companies can use to integrate the SDGs into their strategy. So the sustainable strategy is linked with the SDGs and also with the company strategy. So this is the 5 steps to integrate the SDGs. First one, to understand SDGs. Second one, define priorities. Third one, setting goals. Then integrating, and last, reporting and communicate. This tool was made for big companies, but it's important to say that small business and startups can apply this to different products, different projects, and in the end, I'm going to show an example how a startup integrates the SDGs into some projects. So to understand the SDGs, this is important for identifying future business opportunities, for enhancing the value of corporate sustainability, for strengthening stakeholders' relations and keeping pace with policy developments, for stabilizing society and markets, and also for using a common language and shared purpose. So this is also important because the SDGs is an international framework. So you'll be talking the same language here in China or in the US. Everyone is going to understand what you're talking about when you're saying that your project complies with an SDG and has this goal. The second step is to define priorities. Here you can see a value chain. So this is important because you don't have to tackle every single one of these SDGs because you're probably more focused in 2 or 3, maybe 5 or 6 SDGs. And this is important because if you're spreading attention to every single aspect, you won't focus in one and you won't achieve that goal. So what this proposes to look to your value chain to see what is the positive impacts and negative impacts and what that impacts tells you in SDGs. So you can define which SDGs you can contribute the most and in what SDGs you can improve the most. And then you can define the priorities and in which SDGs are you focused. Then you have setting the goals. Is setting specific, measurable, and time-bounding goals is very important. And you have to define the scope of goals and select the respective KPIs, define a baseline and select the goal type, set the level of ambition. And this is important because you need to be realistic. Otherwise, it's just a number that you can't achieve. And the SDGs won't be achieved with the level of ambition that's realistic. And announce the commitment of the SDGs. Third one, integrating. This is important because in a big company, you have the sustainability department that might manage all these matters. But in small companies, everyone must be aligned with the SDGs. So it must come from top to the top down, but also down top because everyone needs to be aligned with these objectives. And if there is some part of the company that's more focused on one SDG, that's okay. And you can say like, I have 4 SDGs in my company that are priorities, and you can divide it in 4 task forces for each one of these SDGs. And then in the end of the year, you set you consolidate and see if you're achieving every one of these SDGs. And last, and also important, is reporting and communicating. For effective reporting and communications, and communicating on SDG performance. And this is really important, because if you don't report, you don't know your progress. And if you don't communicate, you're not telling the markets and the funds and the people that you need money for that you're doing this well. And that we don't say that you do greenwashing and say that you're doing that stuff, but it's important to have a nice report, and also to influence others to do this framework and this methodology to influence the community. Here I have an example of Unilever integration of the SDGs. So on the left side, you can see the inputs that are relevant for the value chain of Unilever. And here on the rounds, you see every step of the value chain. And then in the middle, you have the purpose, the vision, and the strategy. And on the right side, you have the value they create, and they put in the value, they choose the priority SDGs, and they have here the SDGs. And then they will report about these SDGs and the indicators they choose to report on. And here you have the Go Parity. That's a startup, the Portuguese startup that receives money from small investors and invests in sustainable projects. And for each project, what they do is they show the impact the project has. They also have the indicators, and then they show which SDGs they are contributing for. And now I'm presenting some a study that made by NGP Capital in June of this year. And this is like a business case for the SDGs. Why is this important? Why sustainability pays? And this is a look at startup and scale-up funding trends linked to the SDGs. So this study was made with basis in more than 2,000 companies. And the characteristics were that they were founded during 2015 or later. They raised at least one equity fund round, and they are located in Europe, US, or Israel. So here you can see that the companies that are related to SDG 13 and 7, they raised the most amount of funding compared to the other SDG goals. Yeah, I don't think you can see that well, but it's 30 million, I think 30 billion and 10 billion for the SDG 7. And here you can see that the funding for SDG relevant companies from 2020 to 2021, and we can see a huge increase for the funding from the past years. And here you have a comparison between US and European. So in 2021, European and US funding was almost the same. It was 11 for the US and 9 for the European. But if you see this graphic, this shows the percentage of VC capital that was invested in SDG relevant companies. And in Europe, it was almost 15%. And in the US, it was only 6%. But we can see also that both are raising during the time. And here you can see that the SDG relevant companies are more likely to raise a Series A fund round. So in the top, you can see the percentage of companies that raise the Series A, which are relevant in these SDGs. And here you can see the percentage of companies that are with no SDG category. So it's much higher if you have relevance relevant in SDGs. Also, a company with no SDGs are more relevant, are more likely to fail. You can see here 4.5, only one SDG is more likely to fail than the other ones. And if you go here, you can see that the first four have less than 2% probability to fail versus 4.5 with no SDG relevance. And also, this is really important because one SDG relevant company has the probability to raise 2 to 3 times larger rounds than the others. So the average raise of a non-SDG company was 2 million and 2.4 million, and the most relevant was above 6 million. So the key findings of this study were that SDG relevant startups are more likely to raise a Series A fund round, but are less likely to exit. But this is also can be because SDG relevant company has eyes on the future, and probably they don't have the need to exit earlier. They have a purpose. And the SDG relevant startups are also less likely to fail than other startups. So the key takeaways from today are that regulation, there are lots of regulation coming in, especially in Europe, but also in the United States, they are coming. And it's starting from the larger companies, but it's coming also to the SMEs. Probably in 27 and 28, SMEs are going to have to report lots of information related to sustainability. Also, but the good part of it is that we are seeing a lot of green finance products, and there's a lot of money coming into climate transition, green economy, as Pedro presented, and lots of European funds coming to this kind of companies. So, as I presented, the SDG framework is a way to start in this sustainable path. And it's an international and recognized framework that you can use to communicate and to report the sustainability of your company. And last, the SDG business advantages, as I presented just now, the SDG relevant companies can raise 2 to 3 times larger rounds than the other companies. And that's it for us today. Thank you. And we are open to questions. If you have any question, maybe at home, I see that. I think there are, I don't know if it's questions, if there are comments.
If you want, feel free to add us on LinkedIn, to follow Systemic on LinkedIn, or to send us any message. We will.
No, this is just someone saying that was interesting, but
Okay.
they will need to leave.
Okay.
But yes, there are any questions.
What's your advice for us to startup? Is that to show the SDG? It's an instrument to make bigger rounds, big money, big funding, or it's just the case that we should take into account and keep it as a philosophy, as a general development as a company, and then the statistic is good, it's working for us, but is it really meant to someone?
So our advice is, first, you have to integrate the SDGs, okay? It's not like just show the SDGs and then the money is coming. I think you need to integrate it. So as I showed, look to your value chain, see in which SDGs your company has more impact, positive or negative, and work through that. And then when you're reporting it, you report that you're tackling SDG, for example, 7, 10, and 13. And when you present like a report about what you're doing in terms of sustainability, you have the data. So it's consistent, and okay, this business as a future, they are thinking about sustainability, they have the reports, they have the data, so I will give you the money. I don't know if I responded to your question.
Let me just add some
Yeah.
some comments. There is a kind of tsunami regulation in the last years, and it's like a top-down approach. Regulators are asking asset managers, banks, financial sector, how do you comply with sustainable finance? What are your strategy? What is your vision? How do you apply the money? And then these biggest sharks will ask the small and medium enterprise and startups, what is your approach to sustainability? Do you have SDGs in your strategy? How you can have some contribution to sustainability? In fact, I would say that the first step is to integrate, to think how my product, how my service could contribute to an SDG, and then to integrate this in the reports and to show to the investors. For sure, in the next years, 100% of this pitch of companies to investor capital, the venture capital investors will ask, what is your sustainability strategy? What are your SDGs? Me and Gonçalo were in a conference some weeks ago, and some companies said that in the investor relations webinars with investors, 5 minutes was to talk about the financial performance, and 90% of the meeting was to discuss the sustainability strategy. So the focus of the investors are on what is your strategy to fight, to contribute to sustainability in the world. And this, in fact, is a huge step. How it is possible, 5 minutes to discuss financial performance, and 90% of the meeting was to discuss what is the sustainability strategy. It's a big step that we are taking, and I think the startups and small enterprises should start to think about this.
Because if you're thinking about sustainability, you're thinking about creating value for the long term, and not for the next 5 years and exit. It's quite different approach, and that's why.
Absolutely agree with that. Sorry, this myself, we do biodiesel from industrial waste.
Okay.
So itself our influence to at least 3 goals.
Yeah.
But we didn't put the picture that we really work on this sustainable goal number 6, 12, and 13. But should we sell it? Because as I understand it, can be one of the points to buy something from us, because it's an impact to the business. So itself.
For sure.
At this moment, we are working with some small companies in Portugal, and we are kind of structuring the documentation to achieve the banks and to have some like of sustainability linked loans. So the company will ask a loan for the bank, and the yield will be indexed to these targets of the company. For instance, the share of renewable energy that the company has in place, the evolution of greenhouse gas emissions, and the yield will be linked with the goals that the company will be able to achieve in the next years. In your case, maybe it could be a case to think a little bit, and if you are in the biodiesel industry, I would say that it is a great activity to that the investors and banks would like to invest and give some money, because they have some pressure to give money to these more environmental friendly companies.
So when you talk about collecting data and the adequate reporting for the banking system. What is your approach? What is the adequate reporting?
Actually, it's the if you have like a sustainable report, or if you have certifications, or if you measure your GHG emissions, or even if you're doing, like Pedro presented, like a report on non-finance, and you have but this is more like the biggest companies. If you have and the financial report, and also the ESG information.
The data, it's a kind of a complex discussion nowadays, but it's the statement is there is a lack of data. It's a kind of trouble for everyone. Our approach is to be partners of companies and to adopt a model, a green model, to implement in the sustainable reporting every year. So for big companies, it's easier because there is a lot of rating agencies like Morningstar, Sustainalytics, Moody's, S&P, that have this kind of data and analyze the big companies, the listed companies. But for small companies, it's more difficult. And we try to work with the company, try to make a diagnostics of what is in place, try to define a path, a strategy for the next years, and to publish these steps in a reporting for in the next step to show banks and to investors not only numbers, data, but also actions and the commitments that the company have in place.
Now, so we are doing like projects with some banks, and they're implementing like questionnaires to surveys to companies to know what they are doing in terms of sustainability, and they're gonna get a grade for each company and also for each project to see if it's sustainable, and so environmental and social sustainable, and they can give you like a bonus or penalize you if you're not sustainable in terms of yield. And in the future, this is starting, but in the future it might be regulatory also. So when you're asking for money, you're gonna have to do like a 20-question survey to see if your company is complying with sustainable issues, if there's a sustainable report, if it has some certifications, what is the grade of your building, etc.
Very good. I don't know if there are any additional questions. Online, I don't think so. So I would then end the session. Thank you very much for attending, those that are here physically, but also those that have participated through Zoom. We'll now have a short coffee break downstairs, I believe, in the entrance hall, Susanna. So you are all invited to join. And again, thank you very much. The presentations will be shared with you, also the recordings of this session, so the presentation slides. And if you want to know more about ENRICH or about the work that Systemic doing, just contact us. I believe you'll have access as well to our emails. So thank you again. Okay. Yeah. Next question.